Hi BookTube, I'm here today with my 2022 goals. It's hard to say all those twos. Yeah, so I know I'm late at this, but life has been so unsettled. I've recently moved across the country, so that's why I'm so late with making videos. You know, the truck with all our stuff didn't come until like the middle of February when we got the house January 31st. So I couldn't really start any of my reading goals until the books were here. And then I had to wait 3 weeks for the internet because some of my goals are linked with being able to use the internet. So yeah, I was supposed to start in February, but you know, stuff happened. So my goals are actually not going to start until March. Anyway, so here we go. I'm keeping it simple this year. I think last year I had a lot of goals and they established some good habits that I've fallen into, so they're no longer goals, or just things that I naturally do. So this year I just have 4 goals. That first goal is to read less. Yes, I know that's not a usual goal on BookTube. Last year I read 128 books, and you know, I've always hit at least 100 books every year. So I'd like to, however, this year pursue some other interests. Maybe, you know, I spent a lot of time reading last year. Not doing much. I was working, reading, cooking, and sleeping. Like that was that was all I was doing. So this year I'm aiming for 5 books a month, not including audiobooks or comics. So I'm not including comics in my read less. Comics are going to be kept. I'm not tracking them on Goodreads, I'm tracking them by myself, so they're not going to count towards my goal. Not that I don't think that comic books aren't reading. I usually do track them, but I don't want to lean on comics to meet just my 50 book goal. Okay. And those 5 books a month are 5 physical books a month, and the audiobook will count towards the 50 overall. I'm just don't have a lot of time to listen to audiobooks because I don't know what I'm going to do for a job, if it's going to involve driving just to one place or if it's going to involve driving to lots of places, which is where I usually listen to my audiobook is in the car, so we'll see what audiobooks do. So if I end up reading more, that's okay. I'm not going to limit myself. I just don't want to put pressure on myself to read more. And part of that is another goal, which means I want to spend more time with books. I want to take the time to think about them and annotate them, you know, let them sit with me for a little while. Because before I pick up a book, finish it, throw it to the side and pick up the next book, and then completely forget about that book. Most times. I didn't do that with House of Leaves. And the previous year, in the beginning of last year, I had done really deep dives into Brothers Karamazov and House of Leaves, and I really enjoyed that process, so I want to do that with more books. Yeah, and this way I could also put out more videos on specific books. I do have a whole slew of videos that I'm planning for House of Leaves. And that ties into my third goal, which is to do a deep dive on one book. So last year I did a series of video essays on Brothers Karamazov. I really enjoyed doing those, taking the notes, writing essays, you know, doing the videos and even editing them, like trying to find different pictures and stuff. And yeah, I really enjoyed that process, so I'd like to do that again. So I've already started the process with House of Leaves. All my notes and everything are done. I just gotta, you know, get the essays together and I make a few more notes. It's always, you always think you're done, but it never ends, really. Yeah, so my first part of this deep dive is actually coming later this month. I'm just going over the notes that I made for House of Leaves. The other videos are going to be more in-depth, like analyzing and stuff like that. And my last goal is to use books as education. This is something I always kind of did, but never really intentionally. So this is going to be intentionally using books for education. I've created a curriculum for myself. So I'm paying for this subscription for the great courses, and I found myself not actually using it. So I decided to actually use it this year. So I've set up 2 different like curriculums. I have very loose curriculums for myself. And the first one is just kind of like general education. So I've chosen 10 courses across different topics. each month, and then I chose a nonfiction book and a fiction book to read along with that, so they kind of match themes or the overall topic. So for example, in March, the first general topic is going to be history, and then the great course is actually called The Barbarian Empires of the Steppes. So think like Genghis Khan and Attila the Hun. The nonfiction book I'm going to be reading for that is called The Secret History of the Mongol Queens. And then I have a nonfiction book, which is a self-published book I picked up, I think like 2017, at Word on the Street. And I'm eventually getting around to reading it, you know, a few years later. And that's called The Hounds of Habrujin. And that is like a alternate history where Genghis Khan had conquered the whole world. And we're living in a barbarian empire instead of an English empire, I guess. Yeah. The next Great Courses curriculum is based off of Christianity. So the previous years I had established the habit of reading one book about religion each month. And this year I picked up a copy of a book called The Portable Seminary, because I really want to get to know more about the history and ideas around Christianity. So I'll be reading one chapter a month from that, and it's going to take me 3 years to go through at that pace. It's a large book. And then I'm going to supplement it with a great course and a nonfiction book. But I have a feeling that the Portable Seminary may be a little more conservative than my own personal beliefs, so the nonfiction books are going to be hopefully from a more progressive bend. Yeah. I still hope to learn from it though, even though it's very conservative, because I don't have a big background in theology, even though I went to Catholic church, even though I went to Catholic school, like right from kindergarten up to grade 12. You know, I don't know a lot of basic theology that I feel like I should know. So for example, the first chapter in the Portable Seminary is called The Doctrine of Scripture. So the Great Courses selection is going to be the history and archaeology of the Bible. And my nonfiction selection is called Inspired by Rachel Held Evans. And so that's about whether the scripture is totally inspired by God, or, you know, has influences from the men who wrote it. So yeah, those are my goals for 2022. Let me know what your big goals for the coming year are, and thank you for watching.